the 1850 chart. And I beheld and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe. That's Revelation 8:13. Now, I want you to notice something about that verse right here. It says, I beheld and heard an angel, one angel. Do you see that? I beheld and heard an angel. Now, let's go to the very last message given in world's history, the last message of mercy, which is in Revelation 18. And it starts out like this. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened. It was illuminated with the glory of God, his glory. Now, when we were looking at Revelation 8, it said, I saw an angel in heaven. This says, I saw another angel. Okay. So if this is another angel, then that means there was one that preceded it, that this one came next. Do you see that? So in order to get to the angel that came before it, that preceded it, we go to Revelation 14. And when we go to Revelation 14, there are three angels in this chapter. And so the one that preceded the one in Revelation 18 is this one right here. And the third angel followed them. Oh, them. There's more than one because it's them. And it's a third angel. So there must be a second and first angel before the third angel. And so the one in Revelation 18 is the fourth angel, because after the third angel, John saw another angel come down from heaven. So that one must be the fourth. This one is the third. The one that comes before it is the second, and there followed another angel. Oh, that must mean there's a one that comes before it. So this one's the second. And Revelation 14:6 says, and I saw another angel. This one must be the first. But hold on. How could this one be the first if it says I saw another angel? Well, it must be the first because we just looked at the second, and then a third angel followed them. So there's certainly three in this chapter, first, second, and third angel. And then there's a fourth angel in Revelation 18. But what is the one that comes before this one that flies in the midst of heaven? Because this, even the first angel is another angel. So there's one even before the first. There's one that's even more foundational. And that is in Revelation 8. If we go to the last verse, all the way to the bottom, and it said, I beheld and heard an angel, not another angel, not a third angel, not a second or fourth angel, but the angel, the one that is the foundational message, the foundational message upon which all others sit. I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound. So this angel, the one about the three woes, is the one upon which the other messages are based. Now, this begins to make a lot of sense when we study the Adventist history, when we study the charts, when we look over here and we start to identify what the three woes are. We look at the first woe, which sounded under the fifth trumpet. Okay. We look at the second woe, which sounded under the sixth trumpet, or the sixth angel. So first woe goes with the fifth trumpet. Second woe goes with the sixth trumpet. This I'll read this little bit right here. And the sixth trumpet commenced at the end of the first woe. It continued for an hour and a day and a month and a year. And if you convert that to prophetic time, divine time, it's 391 years and 15 days. So if you convert the divine time rather to regular time, it's 391 years and 15 days, which ended on August 11th, 1840. Now, When this prophecy was fulfilled, this gave great impetus to the Advent movement, and the work rapidly extended from that point on. Thousands were convicted at the correctness of the interpretation of the day for a year principle. And so then they got on board with the first angel's message, which was saying what? Let's go to Revelation 14. So it was the proper understanding of the ending of the second woe. It was the proper understanding of this messages of the woes right here that gave great impetus to the first angel's message. And the first angel's message was saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. How can you go out and tell people that God's judgment is here, that we need to repent, that this is our last opportunity to get right with God before he comes, if we can't prove that it's the hour of his judgment? This message was the message in relation to time. This was a message based on the preaching of the prophetic periods, which, if you trace them down, takes you to 1844. Now, if we go back to the chart, this whole chart embodies the first angel's message. Then if you look at the chart, the 1843 chart actually does brings us out even more, because this chart has the third angel's message on it too. Because if you come down here in this corner, you see the Holy of Holies, understanding of the sanctuary message. But here in the bottom right corner, you see all these the explanation of time, which is the first angel's message. So this right here in the bottom right hand corner is the first angel's message in a nutshell. A prophetic year or time is 360 days. So a day in Bible prophecy equals a year, right? And a year in divine time actually equals 360 actual years. So a prophetic year or time is 360 days denoting years. Seven times is 7 times 360, which equals 2520. Can you keep up with that basic arithmetic right there? So a prophetic year is a time. You ever heard of the times, and a dividing of times? That one time equals 360 years. The times equals 720, and the half equals 180, and that equals 1260. So 3.5 prophetic years equals 1260. 3.5 times 2 equals 7. 7 equals 2520. So that's where that number comes from. Here they're going to explain it themselves. Times and a half is 3.5 times 360 equals 1260 years. The prophetic month is 30 days, and that equals 30 years. So let's go back up to the second woe, because they had this understanding of time, and this enabled them to understand the second woe. The second woe talks about the plague of the Mohammedans lasting for an hour and a day and a month and a year. Okay, a day in Bible prophecy, Ezekiel 4:6, Numbers 14:34 equals a year. So that day right there equals 1 year. A month, there's 30 days in a prophetic month, so that would equal 30 years. So now 1 plus 30 is 31. A year, 30 times 12, 360. So 360 plus 30 plus a year equals 391 years. And if you're able to break down an hour, that comes out to 15 days. And placing it when the first woe ended comes to August 11th, 1840, to the very day, to the very specified time. Isn't that really neat? And so when they saw this fulfilled, when they saw Ottoman supremacy end, when they saw the Ottomans fall into the power, the plague against the apostate Christian nations was reversed, and now the Turk was in the hands of the Christian powers, and they became a dependency on the Christian powers. They could no longer exist. Their empire was about to collapse due to invasion from Egypt. Christian powers intervened, and in exchange, they became a vassal state of the Christian powers. And it was like, wow, the woe ended, just like they said it on the very day. And they were predicting this 2 years out. They were predicting this 2 years out, that it would, in 1840, that this would happen. And so they said, wait a minute. If that came true to the very specified time, then everything else that we're saying down here about the 7 times, about the 2300, here's the time prophecies right here. Eight, 1840, the treading down of Israel by the Gentiles commenced before Christ in 677. This is when Manasseh goes into captivity that year. And 20 years takes us to 1843, the Jewish year of 1843, which extends into 1844 because it's March to March. That's what they were originally thinking with rabbi time. And so so when you see 1843 on the chart, think 1844 in the spring too, because that's what they thought. They weren't going January to January; they were going spring to spring. So I just say that because some of the people that aren't advanced in this message think that there was like a year zero, or that they thought there was a year zero, and that's why the disappointment happened. And if they think that, then they don't understand anything about the tarrying time or the midnight cry. So and that's okay, because maybe they just haven't heard about it yet, but it's important for us to be able to educate on that. Okay, that's a really important thing, that for us to be able to feel comfortable explaining how to explain to people what actually happened and what they actually believed. Nobody ever believed in a year zero. The Millerites didn't, their opponents didn't. That's something new. That's just somehow that's just an explanation that's been given. I'm not sure exactly how it came about. Anyways, so you see the 2520, the 7 times, and notice that this is in 1850. These are third angel preaching Adventists. This is James White here. This is Joseph Bates here. This is Otis Nichols, Hiram Edson, Ellen White. This is the church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church now. They don't have that name yet, but they are third angel. They're believing in the sanctuary, the gifts of the Spirit. They're believing in the mark of the beast, and they're still believing in 7 times. I mean, they're putting it on the chart here. And this is a chart that was directed by the hand of the Lord. So we need to treat it as something that was guided by the Holy Spirit. So we have that. We also have the length of the daily. We have 457 for the 2300 days. We have 508. So we have the 2300 days to 1843. We have the 1335 from 508. So we have these various prophetic periods here. And so this is something that we should all study out. But, we have the 2300-year prophecy, the 2520, the 1335, the 1260, and these other time periods. And that's the first angel's message. That was the first angel's message. It was a message based on time, chronology, Bible prophecy. It was the right understanding of the prophetic periods in the Bible, those mysterious prophetic periods that people are very interested in learning about. We see it here on the chart too, 2300 days. So this chart again is the first angel's message. Okay. And we see that the correct understanding of the woes was what gave great impetus to the message. See great controversy for that history there. The right understanding of the woes. Now, in our Bible study, we have established that these woes are very important, that the first angel's message, is built upon the correct understanding of the woes. And in history, we see that the woes gave impetus to the movement, the correct understanding of the woe prophecies. Now, what are the woes exactly? The woes are aspects of the trumpet. So we have in Revelation. Well, let me go to Revelation 8, because before we talk about the woes, we should talk about just the trumpets for a second. And it says, I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. 7 angels, 7 trumpets. And you come down here to verse 6, and the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Okay, 7 angels prepared themselves to sound, and then there's the first angel, or the first trumpet. And there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of the trees were burnt up, and all the grass was burnt up. This is a very fitting description of Alaric, the Goth, coming into Rome. it says third parts because you had Western Rome, you had Eastern Rome, and you also had, yeah, Rome was also split up three ways. So you had the breadbasket of Rome, which was North Africa, and the islands in the Mediterranean. And so you have these various parts. Now you see a third part again under the second angel, and this is talking about Genseric and the Vandals, and they conquered North Africa. And so you see the different parts of Rome being plagued, right? Eventually, we get to the fourth angel sounded, but none of these angels, if you study this chapter, have a woe attached to them. It's not until you get to the fifth, sixth, and seventh trumpet that you have woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpets of the three angels, which are yet to sound. So, under the fourth trumpet, Western Rome collapses. However, Eastern Rome, which is also known as Byzantium, continued to exist for another 1,000 years. And this is the church, this is the empire that Constantine formed. He was the one that created the Trinitarian and the Sunday dogma, right? He transferred the solemnity of the Sabbath to Sunday and created the Trinitarian doctrine. And so isn't it interesting that there are woes against that power? Have you ever thought of that? That these fifth, sixth, and seventh trumpets are going to be more devastating. Well, it's a lot of that has to do with the precedent that Constantine set and the wicked work that he did. Okay, so there's going to be judgments against the apostates for that. This is about the woes, the trumpets. Trumpets are bad, right? Trumpets, hearing the sound of a trumpet isn't a good thing. So if we just look up trumpet in the Bible real quick, why is the symbol trumpet being used? Well, I'm going to go to Jeremiah, which says, my bowels, I am pained at my, let me blow it up a little bit more. My bowels, I am pained at my very heart. My heart maketh a noise in me. I cannot hold my peace because thou hast heard, O my soul, the sound of the trumpet, the alarm of war. So that's what these trumpets are about. They are announcing that war is coming, that judgment is coming. There's a great verse in the New Testament which says, for if the trumpet give an uncertain sound, who shall prepare himself to the battle? So the first four trumpets were exactly that. You had Alaric and Genseric and Attila the Hun. But however, when you get to the fifth, sixth, and seventh trumpet, there not only is this war, but there's a woe attached to it too. And so what makes these trumpets a bit different? What is the woe exactly? Well, the woe represents a sort of terrorism, the constant incursions. It's the woe is relentless attacks and battles, nonstop, in quick, rapid succession. That's what characterizes the woes. And what else is interesting about the woes is that they are based on time. They have an element of time to them. So if we look to the first woe, it says, and to them it was given that they should not kill, but that they should be tormented 5 months. Now, how long is that? If a month is 30 and we do 30 times 5, this is 150 years, right? Now, if you go to the sixth angel or the second woe, it says, for the four angels were loose, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year for to slay the third part of men. That's 391 years and 15 days. It's based on time. I then beheld a multitude coming up out of the earth, and some of them I knew whose names were enrolled in the church books on earth, some of whom I had seen communing with the saints of different orders, and some which had professed to be preachers of the gospel. Although they had high professions, they were not found worthy, but cried for mercy, and sunk with those who had blasphemed. As we passed the bar, we entered upon a boundless place, which was lighted up with the great brightness. Near the place through which we passed, I beheld a mighty angel clothed in pure white raiment, having a crown of brightness on his head. He appeared to be gazing through the bar, and his eyes, like lamps of fire, were fixed with steadfastness upon the earth. He stood with his right foot placed before him, and as though walking, and his object appeared to be to reach the earth. Notice this, but 3 steps remain for him to take. So even before the great disappointment, God was in a subtle way trying to bring their minds to the 3 angels' messages, but 3 steps remain for him to take. Against his breast and across his left hand, what was, as it were, a trumpet of pure silver, and a great and terrible voice came from the midst of the boundless place, saying, I want you to hear that again. A great and terrible voice came from the midst of the boundless place, saying, the 6th angel has not yet done sounding. Now, this was recorded in 1842. This is in 1842. So this is inspiration. What anybody else may say about when the 6th angel ended or when the 6th trumpet ended, it did not end until 1844, because in 1842 the 6th angel is done sounding, is not yet done sounding. In 1842 the 6th angel is still sounding. It still has to go to 1844. How do I know that? Well, if I take you to Revelation 10, we can see, we can determine when the 7th angel begins to sound. I'll take you to verse 6, and swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that therein are, and the earth and the things that therein are, and the sea and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer. So this is the little book that's open in the angel's hand, and he's going to interpret, he's going to give us an explanation of what is the book about. And it's a message in relation to time. It's about the ending of the prophetic periods. And then what happens immediately after that, the very next thing, but in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he shall begin to sound. So the 6th angel is still not done sounding in 1842, but the prophetic periods we know end in when? 1844. And when that has happened, when time is no longer, when we enter into no more prophetic time, when we have no more time message, which after 1844, the 7th angel shall begin to sound, and the mystery of God should be finished. Should have been finished in 1888. Christ in you, the hope of glory. His character should have been reproduced in us. It should be finished by now. It's still ongoing, just because the husband has long patience for the fruits of righteousness to be reproduced in his people, and the earth to be filled with the fruits of righteousness. And so it will end soon. But that is the work of the 3rd angel, right? The ideas of justification by faith, righteousness by faith, the mystery of God being finished, him reproducing his character in us, him coming and get the 144,000 in the first fruits. That's the work of the 3rd angel. That's when the 7th angel begins to sound. So the 3rd angel arrives when the 7th angel begins to sound. But in 1842, the 6th angel is still yet done sounding. Now, this, what we just read from William Foy, what it proves to us is that the woes are aspects of the trumpets. The woes are the prophetic time periods embedded in the trumpets. The 4th trumpets don't have prophetic periods, hence they don't have woes attached to them. The woes are the constant incursions, the excess terrorism committed by the Mohammedans jihading into Byzantium and into Western Europe. But under the 3rd woe, and it's hard for people to understand, it shouldn't be hard for people to understand after 9/11, but it's still, people are still not awake to what's going on. They seem to not realize that Hezbollah and these other people that are in the United States, there's sleeping cells in the United States. There are bad people in the United States that have been let in through the border and in other ways that I probably don't know about. They are ready to attack. And we see, if we come down here and look at the seventh angel, look who it's blasting on. Remember that God was the architect of this chart. And I think he put it just this way for a reason. The seventh angel is blasting right on the image of the papacy, right? America in Bible prophecy, apostate Protestantism. That's what that seventh angel is. The seventh angel has a woe on it. Look, the third woe cometh quickly. The third woe is going to come and terrorize America. America is not immune. So America is the one that's going to make a Sunday law. Is it not? America is the one that's going to make a mark to the beast, right? He's going to work with the beast to create this mark. And what happened to Constantine? What happened to Constantine? What happened to Constantinople? It became Istanbul. It totally collapsed. That empire was demolished under the second woe. Now look here. The Ottoman supremacy ceased in 1840. The second woe is past, right? The second woe ends in August 11th, 1840. That's when the prophetic period ends. But the sixth trumpet is not yet done sounding until 1844. Okay, so under the fifth trumpet sounds for hundreds and hundreds of years from the 7th century all the way up until 1449. For hundreds of years it was sounding. But the first woe is dealing with the 150-year periods within that larger time span. Under the sixth trumpet, we have the woe for 391 years and 15 days. However, the sixth trumpet is still sounding for a few years after Ottoman supremacy ceases. So what we can take away from this is the woes or aspects of the trumpets. The first four trumpets don't have these woes, but the fifth and sixth trumpet do have these woes. And this helps us because what we want to understand is what the third woe is. If the third woe is not based on time, because the seventh trumpet is not based on time, because time is no longer in 1844, then the third woe is based on prophetic events, and it comes quickly. So we should look for sudden events that we weren't expecting, or maybe prophecies that we were expecting, but we wouldn't expect them to come this soon, right? And that gets us over to the quotes dealing with the fireballs, because that's what the people are saying, right? In these in the story of the fireballs, the people are like, you knew that this was happening. You knew that this was happening. We did, but we didn't expect it to happen so soon, right? The third woe comes quickly. The third woe comes unexpectedly. If you look at 9/11, for instance, yeah, there's quotes in Miss Wright's writings about the buildings falling in New York, and there was 9/11, and people had read that over and over again, but it didn't really make an impression until after it happened. And then it was like, wait a minute, she saw this. We had prophecies about this, right? And so what we want to do this time around is we want to be proactive in warning people that these judgments are coming. So we don't have to deal with people saying, you knew, and you didn't warn us. If you love your neighbor, you don't want them to die, or you don't want to see their house get destroyed and all their livelihood, and their lives get turned upside down. So let's read about these judgments. And actually, before we read about that, I think we should look at the Bible really quickly again at Revelation 9. And this is something that we spoke about on Wednesday, but it's an important point. And so I think we should talk about it again. When you look at Revelation chapter 9, you're going to see certain characteristics. You're going to see the word torment, for instance. Look at this, that they should be tormented, that their torment was as the torment of a scorpion. So torment is a word that is emphasized. We see things like locusts. This is helpful when studying Joel chapter 2 and trying to understand what Joel chapter 1 and 2 is about. Horses, teeth as lions, that's all important. When we get down scorpions, I think of in the Old Testament, Solomon's counselors and advisors come to his son and they say we should lighten the burden on the people, and he's like, you were chastised this way by Solomon, I'm going to chastise you with scorpions. So the scorpions represent a chastisement if we allow the Bible to interpret it, what the meaning of scorpions is for us. So these judgments are chastisements. And if you look in here, notice this word here. Brimstone is a word that's used here. Fire is a word. Smoke, brimstone. And out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. So there's these horses, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. And these three was the third part of men killed by the fire and smoke and the brimstone. So the third part of the empire, not North Africa, not the breadbasket of the former Roman Empire or Gaul and those places in the West, but now the eastern part, the third part, is being annihilated. It's being killed, and it's being killed how? By fire, smoke, and brimstone. Okay. So what was the Bible talking? What was John talking about? He was talking about something that didn't exist. He was talking about something that didn't exist, and that was guns. Men firing guns off of their horses. And so this is how he described it. Fire and brimstone issuing out of the mouth of the horses. So when we are reading in the future, then, when we're looking at Revelation 18, which was future in Ellen White's day, when she was writing about it, we are also writing about torment. So much torment and sorrow giver. We are also writing about plagues. That's what Revelation 9 is about. I didn't highlight that word, but you just go to you just go to the end of the chapter and you see, hold on, a little bit of a glitch there. You see, and the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues. So I just want to show you the commonalities, because Revelation 9 is about the first and second woe. Revelation 18 is about the third woe. That's where we find it. And so we see torment, we see plagues, we see those similarities. We also see smoke, the smoke of her burning. We also see, how is she going to be judged? And she shall be utterly burned with fire. Okay, that was the main characteristic of the second woe, fire, smoke, and brimstone. So we see that too. We see torment, we see plagues, we see fire, we see brimstone. We see these similarities. And the question is it guns on horseback again? No, we've advanced even more technologically by this time. And so now, when we get to the fireballs, I will show you, I'm not going to start with this quote right now. I'm going to start with another one to show you that these quotes about the fireballs are dealing with Revelation 18. Okay. In the night season, I had a presentation. I did not seem to be in my own house in St. Helena. Now, I want you to note that. So keep that in the back of your mind as we continue to read. I was, as I thought, awakened in the night season with a great noise of cries of distress, and I saw the whole heavens lighted up. There were balls that looked like fire falling, and these balls looked as if full of arrows. Okay, that's interesting. And wherever they struck, there was great calamities. Houses were set on fire, and no human effort could extinguish the flame. The earth quaked, and homes were falling with a crash. I heard distressing screeching and praying. There was confusion everywhere. I said to somebody, "Do look, that is the most striking representation of what will be in the last day," Revelation 18. Now, hop over back to Revelation 18 real quick. Revelation 18 is a warning about the fall of Babylon. The fourth angel says, Babylon the great is fallen, is fallen. Who is Babylon? We call this the loud cry of the third angel, right? That this angel comes after the third, they're related. And the third angel is a warning against the beast in his image. This is the loud cry aspect of that message. So Babylon then, if the second angel is Babylon, the great is fallen, the third angel is about the beast in his image being hit with brimstone and fire and things. And then the fourth angel is the loud cry aspect of that third angel. It's the loud cry of the third angel. Then these messages are related. They're two sides to the same coin. And Babylon then would be the beast in its image, because the antagonistic power is the same. We're still judging the same bad people, right? It's the loud cry of the third angel. The third angel is a warning against the beast in his image. If that isn't proof enough, all I have to do is come down a couple verses. There's another voice that comes from heaven, another call under the loud cry of the third angel that says, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues, for her sins have reached unto heaven." When do the sins of Babylon reach unto heaven? When the law of God is made void by legislation, which is the third angel's message. That's the mark of the beast. It's time for God to work. God's going to remember her iniquities. God's going to send her plagues. And it's because they're using the power of the state, they're using all the powers of the world, the militaries of the world, the institutions of the world, the medias, the religious institutions. Everything is aligned. All earthly powers are aligned against us. God's small remnant. And so what can be done then, except that God take the work into his own hands and he start to work on our behalf? It's time for thee to work, Lord. They have made void thy law. So this is absolutely the loud cry of the third angel right there in plain sight. Now, Babylon is a warning against the beast and his image. Okay. The mother's had her day. It's now the days of the daughter. The image of the beast is at the forefront of prophecy. We see that the seventh trumpet is sounding right there on the image of the papacy. This one comes up after papal Rome at the end of the world. And this is America in Bible prophecy. We're talking America's at the forefront of Bible prophecy. So when we're reading about these fireballs, when we're reading about these torments in the spirit of prophecy and Revelation, we should think, hey, these are events that are happening in America. Now, I would submit that they happen in Europe and other places too, but America is the forefront of it all. This is the most striking representation of what will be in the last day, Revelation 18. So we should be expecting things in the sky, falling from the sky, and these weapons are full of arrows. They're full of arrows. Now, what's interesting about there's two different kinds of nukes. There's tactical nuke. There's another kind of nuke. I want to say it's strategic. Don't quote me on that. But there's two different kinds of nukes, and one of the two can detonate, and then smaller bombs smaller equipment can spread out and fan out from the bigger missile. And missiles look like balls of fire when they're moving through the air. So what we're reading about is some sort of advanced military equipment, just like under the second woe. It's going to follow the same pattern. Okay, the fire and the brimstone are going to follow the same pattern. This is the most striking representation of what will be in the last day. When we're reading about Revelation 18, when we're reading about these plagues and these torments, we're reading about the third woe. And the third woe is going to follow the pattern of the first and second woe. So that's very good. Now, let's come up here to this very important quote. Notice that this is very same. Remember, I told you to keep something in the back of your mind? In the night season, I thought, in a room, but not in my own house. Hey, that's what she said in the other quote. I was in a city where I knew not, and I heard explosion after explosion. So this is in a city in America. I rose up quickly in bed and saw from my window large balls of fire. Jetting out were sparks in the form of arrows. Remember, in the last one, the balls of fire were full of arrows. In this one, they're jetting out in the form of arrows. Now, to jet is to propel forward, right? This is not a meteor and then things are breaking off from it because of the friction caused by the atmosphere. This is something that's propelling. This is something that's jetting forth out from the fireball, and buildings were being consumed. And in a very few minutes, the entire block of buildings were falling, and the screeching and the mournful groans came distinctly to my ears. I cried out in my raised position to learn what was happening. Where am I, and where are our family circle? Then I awoke, but I could not tell where I was, for I was in another place than home. I said, "O Lord, where am I, and what shall I do?" It was a voice that spoke, "Be not afraid, nothing shall harm you." I was instructed that destruction hath gone forth upon cities. The word of the Lord will be fulfilled. Isaiah 29:19-24 was repeated. I dared not move, not knowing where I was. I cried unto the Lord. What does it mean? These representations of destruction were repeated. I would submit that these are the same representations that are also the most striking representation of what will be in the last day, Revelation 18. These representations of destruction were repeated. Where am I? So she keeps seeing the fireballs and the arrows jetting forth. In scenes I have represented that which will be, but warn my people to cease from putting their trust in men who are not obedient to my warnings and who despise my reproof. For the day of the Lord is right upon the world when evidence shall be made sure. Now, let's look to the second woe as a criterion of what to expect in our time as well. Why were the plagues? Why was the Eastern Roman Empire, the Sunday keeping Trinitarian Empire, being judged by the Mohammedans? It was because of their idolatries and their sins. Let's see what kind of sins they were committing. And then we'll ask the question, is this what we're doing in our day? Are these the sins of America as well? And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and wood, which neither can see nor hear nor walk. Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor their fornication, nor of their thefts. Now, we look at this last verse, especially, is this an issue in our culture? Take the subject of abortion. Tens of millions of American babies have been murdered. Sorceries. Take the pharmaceutical trade. Take say all the people that are destroyed on opioids, and I'm talking both legal and illegal drug use. You could look at fentanyl. We could look at what happened in 2020 and 2021 and all the shenanigans there. People were deceived by sorceries. Anthony Fauci is a sorcerer, right? And so we see that sin. We see the sins of murders. Also, gang violence is really, really bad in the inner cities in America, like Chicago and these other places. So there's a lot of murdering going on, right? And also the military industrial complex is murdering a lot of people. So there's just a lot of murder. There's a lot of sorcery. There's a lot of fornication. We're a very sexually deviant culture. You could look at the filth being put out in Hollywood. What about OnlyFans? What about the pornography industry? We have AI porn now. We have just a very promiscuous culture. But then there's also LGBTQ. We have a lot of perverse, sexually deviant kind of behavior as well. So the fornications are really bad, and then also the thefts. I think the most notable theft is through money printing. What the central banks are doing, I think, is the worst of the worst. Is the devaluation of the dollar itself. Very insidious, hard for some people to comprehend, but society is being America is being pillaged. People's savings are being pillaged. And so these sins here are the sins about there were similar things going on in the Byzantine Empire. And now we see these things happening again at the end of the world at Revelation 18. We see that the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies, and it's through theft. We see this is speaking of a sort of spiritual fornication, and nevertheless, for the actual sin of fornication is happening as well. So when it says, my people to cease from putting their trust in men who are not obedient to my warnings and who despise my reproof. Our job is our message is that Babylon has fallen. We're to repeat the second angel's message with the additional corruptions which have come into the church, correct? And those who reject that message will see evidence being made sure. For the day of the Lord is right upon the world when evidence shall be made sure. And it's through these third woe judgments. It's through these judgments that people will be very much convicted that the Lord is coming soon, that the battle of Armageddon is upon us, that the world is falling apart, and that they need to, and that God is judging America. Just like it was the fulfillment of August 11th, 1840, which gave great impetus to the second Advent message. So too when these fireballs start to fall. So too when these horrible judgments start to fall on America, evidence will be made sure, and this too I expect to give impetus to the movement. Those who have followed the voices that would turn things upside down will themselves be turned where they cannot see, but will be as blind men. So a warning against the false teachers who are trying to obfuscate these realities, these prophecies that are coming to pass. Now notice this is very important here. These words were given me from Isaiah 30. Now go, write it before them in a table, and note it in a book, that it may be for a time to come, forever and ever. These words were given me from Isaiah 30, in conjunction with this fireball vision. This is what's to be made on a table. This is what's to be noted in a book. Did you know that there's another prophecy of another table coming? We've had two. We've had the 1843 and the 1850. Well, there will be another. I assume it'll be a digital graphic this time. But there will be another chart, though. There'll be another chart. Now we're looking at this digitally. So I assume that in this age, it'll be, the publishing work is largely digital. I assume that it'll be digital too. and there will be another one outlining what we believe regarding the fourth angel's message, regarding the third woe. Now, this is very interesting. Miss White says this is a rebellious people, lying children, children that will not hear the law of the Lord, which say to the seers, see not, and to the prophets, prophesy not unto us right things. Speak unto us smooth things, prophesy deceits. Isaiah 30, 18, 8 through 15 quoted. I was instructed that light had been given me, that I had written under special light the Lord had imparted. So the proper understanding of these fireball visions and dreams, this is special light. This is dealing with a new chart that's coming about. This is dealing with the Revelation 18 message, the message of the third woe. And this is dealing with the sins of Babylon being reproved by God's holy people. We are going to be taking up the work of Elijah. We're going to be like the prophets of old, condemning the unrighteous acts of our fellow countrymen, and also those in the church, also those within our own body. This is rebellious people, lying children, children that will not hear the law of the Lord. If we go to now Isaiah 30 was quoted for her. The end of Isaiah 29 was quoted for her. If we look at some of these chapters, Isaiah 29, Isaiah 30, and such, there's something that's interesting in Isaiah 29. Now, these aren't the exact verses that were quoted to her and repeated to her, but this is the same chapter. This is in the same area of the Bible. And I want to read a couple of verses to give some context. Stay yourselves and wonder, cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes, and your prophets and your rulers, the seers, hath he covered. Now they are drunken, but not with wine. They are drunk, but not with strong drink. So this is not alcohol that's getting them, like actual alcohol. This must be then the wine of Babylon, the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Coming back, so it's because it says it's not, they don't stagger with actual, they're drunk, but not with actual wine. It's a different kind of drunk. It's just as bad. The Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and he hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers hath he covered. And the vision of all has become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed. Now, what book is it that's sealed? What book is it that's sealed? What vision is it that's sealed? It's the one from Habakkuk chapter 2. It's not sealed to the Adventist people. And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. The vision isn't sealed to this one, Charles Fitch and Apollos Hale, and J.B. Himes, which got the 43 chart up. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, it shall surely come, it will not tarry. Though the prophetic periods extend beyond where you thought they would, in the spring of 1844, wait for it. You're just in the tarrying time. The midnight cry is coming and will tell you when the prophetic periods actually end. Though the vision tarry, wait for it. It shall surely come. It will not tarry. It's the same thing as in the parable in Matthew 25. They go forth, right? They're giving this message. They have this message in their lamps. They have the prophetic periods. They're preaching the second coming. And then they start to tarry because the Jewish year of 1843 is up. Christ's still not come. We don't know what to say anymore. Well, we'll just have to wait. We'll just go back to work, I guess. Then the midnight cry comes, and then they start to go forth, right? Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. That's what was said in the summer of 1844 when the midnight cry came. So those who are drunk cannot understand the 1843 and 1850 chart. Same at the end of the world regarding the third woe. Those who are rejecting it are the ones who are drunk. Notice this. And the book is delivered to them, him that is not learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I am not learned. But William Miller and his associates, they took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up. And it was in my mouth sweet as honey, because they love the soon appearing of the Lord. And as soon as I had eaten it, it was in my belly, it was bitter, because there was a disappointment. So those who can understand the former messages, blessed are the eyes that saw the things in 1843 and 1844, for many righteous men desire to look into those things that you're studying and have not understood them. But blessed are your eyes, for they hear and they see. Also, blessed are the eyes that saw the things in 1843 and 1844. Just like the disciples, the Millerites had an experience like that, where those around them couldn't understand, but they understood. We're going to go through the same experience. Isaiah 30, a chapter also quoted, is the one about write it before them in a table and note it in a book, that it may be for a time to come, forever and ever. So there's this injunction to write it on just a single table. There was the 43 and 43 and Habakkuk gets make it plain upon tables. So you have 43. They did it again in 1850. But then at the end of the world, they're going to do it. They're going to interpret Revelation 18 correctly and the fire and brimstone correctly, and they're going to put it on this table. Very good. Then Isaiah 28, if we just go back 2 chapters, notice this. But they also have erred through wine, and through strong drink are out of the way. The priest and the prophet have erred through strong drink. They are swallowed up of wine. They are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment, for all tables are full of vomit and filthiness, so that there is no place clean. So the analogy I give is just like if you're at college and there's a frat party and everybody is drinking copious amounts of alcohol, they all start to barf and throw up on each other, throw up on themselves, and there's just no clean place. It becomes disgusting. They're peeing everywhere, they're peeing themselves, they're vomiting everywhere. This is how God sees the false teachers and false prophets in our movement. Those who misinterpret or make none effect the 1843 chart and the 1850 chart. The rejection, let's say, of the 2520. A lot of people ask, what is the big deal? Why can't they see it? Why do they hate it? Why do they hate a prophecy that speaks of God's people being scattered and splintered into many different groups and having to live in the wilderness for centuries on end? And then at the end of the world in 1844, he would gather together one true people, just like he did when back in 457, when he called his people out of Babylon to re-inhabit Jerusalem, or when he took them out of Egypt and settled them in the promised land, and he had a people again. Well, he would do that at the end of the world too. He would gather people, and that's the Seventh-day Adventist people, the one true people, the true people of God. That's why we're not Baptists or Catholics or Presbyterians or Muslims or anything else. We can't be. We have the truth. We can never depart from it. We can never leave Israel, right? And so that's what that prophecy says. Hey, at this time we would be scattered. At this time we would be gathered. It came true, just like God